Nice job going through my post history and finding out where I go to college. Fucking creepy. Globally, people die of air pollution at a higher rate than COVID. We don't shut down the world for those people because that would have a far larger negative effect than not doing anything about the air pollution. I'd argue that the same is true of lockdown. It is estimated that the lockdowns have thrust 100 million people worldwide into extreme poverty. A decade of progress on this issue has been lost. Poverty is the cause of many deaths as well, because people living under it are not able to afford proper health care and sanitation. Here in the US, the wealth and educational gap between the upper class and lower class has risen. The shutdowns primarily affected jobs being done by lower class people, and the children of these people have fallen behind in their education. Wealthy children can afford private tutors, and it's easier for them to attend online school meeting. This is not the case for lower-class children. Here's an article on this topic. This is an issue that not only affects K-12 kids, but also low-income college students as well. It's estimated that current K-12 students can expect to make 3% less over the course of their lifetimes, due to educational disruption by the lockdowns. Keep in mind that this percentage will be higher for lower-income students. The effect of educational disruption alone on the U.S. economy is expected to be $14 trillion. 60% of the businesses that have closed for COVID are to close permanently. This will put numerous people out of jobs and have a massive ripple effect on the economy. I support mask mandates and some mitigation measures, such as isolation of the elderly and immunocompromised. Will we have more deaths due to COVID than if we locked everything down? Most likely, but it will be manageable. Sweden didn't lock down and their death rate was higher than their neighbors, but they never overwhelmed their neighbors and their economy wasn't as hard hit as the other countries in Europe. All things being considered, I think the lockdowns are worse than the virus and we should consider a more nuanced approach without mitigation measures. Oh okay, it all started, I don't remember the date exactly, but the year was 2019. I was 16 years old, just joined Akash Institute for my G-Prep and inadvertently one day bumped into a girl, a hot one by the way, and fell upon my head and she picked me up and offered her handkerchief to me because the wall edge had a nail on it and it scratched my elbow which resulted in minor bleeding. She gently tied her handkerchief around my arm, kind of filmy ick but it's true. Next day I saw her in the 15 minutes break we used to get between subsequent classes. She was in the medical batch so I entreed her class and went on to thank her for her benevolence. We talked for quite a while and exchanged our phone numbers. We used to talk almost every day that point on and one thing I came across was that she was a huge K-drama fanatic and to impress her I might have to delve into the nether it is. I asked one of my friends at school and she suggested a K-drama named The Heirs. I really don't like the concept of coochie love, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So I watched the show in its entirety, 20 eps 1 hour each, and played the ultimate trump card by acting as a K-drama fanatic myself. She got impressed and our casual chats turned into late-night convos. I was happy, more precisely elated, as if I got Air 1 in ADV, but I didn't have the courage to express my feelings so I kept on acting as the best friend for like 3 months or so until I was able to make a move. Making a move may be an overstatement. I just held her hand while crossing the road, but it was a major step for me. The other boys in my batch, engineering, were utterly jealous of so far as to brand me a simp, but who cares? So forwarding to the important part, the date and time I was proposed. It was November 16th and the time was 3:43 p.m., it was her birthday, and she asked me for being her better half. Things went on. The next year came by, but we didn't go any further than first base. Casual snogging became common, but asking for getting physical was too much of a stretch for me. Then COVID happened, lockdown and shit. Had 19 fights over the span of 8 months, lack of communication. But when everything got normal around Oct, not normal per se but less severe, we met and sorted stuff up. Snogged for quite a while and she then asked me the multi-million-dollar question as if I want to go further than third base, and I was shook for a minute. Then she told me that she'd been getting erogenous thoughts lately and would like me to be her first, as if I had anyone before. And the next Sunday, the day I cashed in my V-card, arrived. October 18, 2020 being the fateful day we both lost our virginity, and I still remember every exact detail. Call me creepy, I don't mind. And that's pretty much it. That's the story. Thank you for reading. I was once at my girlfriend's townhouse and they had a backyard with a shared fence with a family, or group of families. It was dark night, but one of those nights when the light of the town reflects off of the clouds so it's eerily light out. The fence between the townhome and the family house was old and worn out, so you could see through the gaps if you really focused. We heard a blood-curdling scream, followed by an immediate soul-crushing inhale. There was probably 50 feet between the glass sliding door we were at and the fence. They had their floodlights on, and it illuminated the silhouettes of the parents crying. Peering through the fence 50 feet away, you could see a body swaying from the tree. Their son had hung himself and discovered it in the dead of night when their dog ran out to the backyard and activated the floodlights. We could only see through the small gaps in the fence and the shadows of the family experiencing it in real time. Still gives me chills every time I think about it. One night of college, I heard a woman screaming for help. I looked out my window and saw her right next to the street. Keep in mind this is a popular college town and the street was busy, and there didn't seem to be anything immediately attacking or endangering her. After a few minutes I was about to go down when a car pulled up and 3 guys got out. I could overhear the convo since it was right out of my bedroom, but she said no one was paying attention and they should try some other apartment. They all jumped in and drove off. A month later an apartment got broken into and 4 people were caught. 1 woman and 3 men. Apparently she was in the house and left the door unlocked, and the men then came in and robbed the place. When I was about 6, my parents dropped me off at this swimming lesson class. Now this was back in China over 2 decades ago. I remember that class had a lot of students. Anyways, I was scared of the water and didn't want to go in, and the teacher got frustrated and just tossed me in the deep end. To this day I remember clearly the panic I felt, the sheer fear as I choked and gauged on the pool water as I sunk lower and lower. It felt like ages before the teacher shoved a long pole into the pool for me to grab onto to pull me out. I remember the sensation of panic and edges of my vision getting dark. For several years after, I was so terrified of water going over my face that I had trouble showering and washing my hair. I had to force myself to take a deep breath, go under the water and scrub as fast as I can and step out. Every time my heart rate would go crazy and I would be on the edge of a panic attack. Anyways, it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that this even came up during a family visit, and my grandmother told me that when Grandpa found out, he got so mad he called in favors from his army buddies, literally old revolutionary soldiers from Mao's days, to go in there with high-ranking government officials to scare the fuck out of that swimming school/teacher. I was home alone for the weekend when I was in high school, which was exciting for me as I never really had the house to myself ever. I had a few people over the Friday night and got hammered. Then the next night it was just me home alone in my house. I had a case of beers left over and had a movie to watch, so I decided that the hangover would not keep me down and to party by myself and have an awesome night. I ended up getting way too drunk and felt hungry. I decided to cook a mad feed and started whipping up a pasta in a drunken slur. I was singing like a maniac while I played MasterChef in my kitchen thinking I was top shit. Halfway through singing and stirring the pasta sauce, I hear a tapping sound and some movement in the corner of my eye catches my attention. One of the metal chain ropes used to pull the blinds up and down on the glass doors was moving and hitting the glass door, making a tapping sound. I froze as I watched it moving back and forth by itself. Then my focus kind of zoomed out as I realized that that was not the only metal blind ropes that were moving. We have around 7 sets of blinds on the glass doors, and all 7 of the ropes were moving back and forth. My hair stood up and I walked out of the kitchen as all of them were tapping on the glass doors. No windows or doors in the house were open, and they were picking up momentum with the tapping becoming louder and more frequently. I turned around just in time to see the DVD case of the movie I was watching slide off the TV cabinet on its own. I let out a slurred "phew" thought and went to bolt outside, just freaking out. On the way out, I saw the painting next to the front door. It had been moved and was tilted. I let out a gasp. I ran out the door and wet myself just a little in the process. Shit was real, the horror was real, this was real. Outside, I was so distraught and horrified at what had just happened. My house was haunted. There was a fucking ghost and it was fucking with me. Didn't like me. I realized that I had left the stove on and that I needed to leave, but needed to grab my phone to call someone and get out of there. I decided I would go to the park and try to contact a friend. So I psyched myself up, ran into the house, turned off the stove shitting myself, ran into my room, grabbed the key, my phone and 10 beers. I headed to the park and started drinking again. No one picked up as everyone was wiped out from the night before. Cut a long story short, I vaguely remember being at the park before I blacked out, then in my kitchen crying at some point, then blank. The next day I woke up in my bed. I wondered whether it was just a dream, but I walked out and saw the pasta and DVD case and realized that it was legit. I realized that I had to break the news to my family later that day that our house was haunted and that we would have to move. I went on Facebook and that's when I saw status after status saying that there had been a minor earthquake during the night. Needless to say, I felt like a hungover idiot, but the truth is that was the first earthquake I had experienced, and we don't get earthquakes where I live. Or not usually, at least. The campus house that I lived in had a pretty fucked up history. Suicides took place there, previous owners died, and it was old as hell. I stayed there all summer alone because of my job in my college's city, and legit every night I'd hear shit. Before I'd chalk it up to one of my 4 other roommates making noise, but now I was alone. I pretty much heard weird shit almost every night. The first day I got there, I went upstairs to my room, and the second I reached the top of the stairs I heard a door slam downstairs. Throughout the summer I heard footsteps, doors, and a bunch of other shit. I was almost sure, still think this today, that there was a squatter who somehow avoided me all summer. There were days when the front door would be unlocked in the morning where I vividly remember locking it at night. I'd say to myself, okay, here I am locking the door, and give it a few tugs to make sure it was locked and it'd be opened come morning. Maintenance usually let themselves in periodically, but I'd call them up and they'd say they hadn't been there. The creepiest one was the door that led up to the attic. It was a regular door, not one of those pull-down ones. Some days it'd be slightly opened and I'd pull on it closed, but it wouldn't open by itself. I'd close it, put a chair in front of it, but it'd still be slightly opened. My roommate came down one weekend that I happened to be gone, and he said he heard a lot of banging as well throughout the night. One day I straight up yelled, "If there's anyone squatting here, I literally do not care, and you can stay, but let me know you're here and we can set up some simple ground rules. I'm chill." I thought I heard some rustling from the basement, but nothing ever happened. Funny part is, if there was a squatter, I wouldn't have cared too much. It's the college's house, so if someone wanted to be my roommate for the summer, I would have been totally okay with it as long as they weren't a psycho.